Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, friends. Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe coming to you for another edition of Mavs Moneyball After Dark. It's Friday night. It is exactly 10 p.m. as we press the record button, at least according to my computer. And the Dallas Mavericks just thumped the Portland Trailblazers 130-110. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I would like to congratulate you on this Christian Wood performance. I think you really need to, take your due. You earned this. You deserve this. You put in a lot of hard work, and you got results.
It's funny because I did this with Tim Hardaway Jr. too. Before the Detroit Pistons game, I looked at the fact that he'd played roughly 60 games under Jason Kidd, and he was shooting 32% from three over those 60 games. Like, it was not a small sample size. And I'm just like, what is going on here? I didn't necessarily say I was out, but I was just like, I'm like, this is ridiculous. And since then, he's been, pretty okay. I mean, he had a heater the other night, but he's been good. And with Wood, what I said the other night was just like, I'm tired of watching him do isolation. To be fair, I still am tired of that. But he played a hell of a game tonight. And, there was this, Jason Kidd came up with this really fucking novel concept. It's like, we've just got to credit him for this, Josh. He played his two best players together, and he played them together a lot. And the Mavericks won by a lot when they were on the floor.
They did. Boy, Christian Wood, Luka pairing looked pretty good. What's funny is Wood has gotten some decent minutes. He's averaging about 20.
They've won with him playing over 28 minutes this season.
Right. So, he played a decent amount of minutes with Luka in that Cleveland game. He started the second half. I think what people were frustrated with was he kind of had it going. And the second half was when they kind of looked respectable. And it was the first half when he came off the bench where the game was lost. The game was lost in the first half. So, Dwight Powell suffered a thigh contusion. So Christian Wood might have to start by default tomorrow night in Cleveland. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. The Luka Christian Wood pick and roll is awesome. I wrote about it 2.5 weeks ago that basically when those two are on the floor, they're running teams off the floor. Their offense is staggeringly good. The defense isn't amazing, but the offense is so good it almost doesn't matter. And when it comes to regular season basketball, at least, offense, you can win a lot of games by just outshooting teams. And that's kind of what we talked about. That's exactly what we talked about during our Maxey injury podcast. Was this team has to make sure that they're playing their best offensive players together as much as possible because they just lost, one of their defensive anchors, and lo and behold, Wood and Luka play a lot and they score a lot and it looks good.
Is it a recipe for playoff success Let's just be honest. It's not. It's really not. But you have to make the playoffs. And again, they're 29 games through the season and they're playing 500 basketball. They have to figure out a way, to be a real playoff team if that's what they want. They're going to have to be 5 to 10 games over 500. It's just 500 I don't think is going to cut it for top 6 in the West. And I consider that playoffs. Making the play-in is something different. But if that's what they want, the Mavericks are going to have to play better basketball. And tonight was an interesting game because it sort of feels like one of these things. We've seen 2 Portland Trailblazers Dallas matchups. And this is one of those sort of styles make fights game where they have the number of the Grizzlies, for example. Luka really does. And I also feel that Luka has the number of the Trailblazers. And that's not, obviously he's an MVP candidate, highest scorer in the league. You could argue that he has the number of every team they play against, but some of the stuff he does against the Blazers is gross. And I mean that in a complimentary way. He was mean to Justice Winslow and some of the other guys that they ended up guarding him. And it's pretty funny watching these two teams play because the depth of talent that Portland has is really pretty good. They have some really good basketball.
They're
players.
A good team.
Yeah. So this is a quality victory for the Mavericks.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head about how this is turning into Memphis, where this is just a team that the Luka Doncic era handles. They've won. This is their 6th straight win against Portland. This is dating back to when they won March 2021, and that game was a 1-3. And look at some of these scores, Kirk, in this 6-game winning streak. Mavericks win, and these are all Mavs wins. 132-92, 132-117, 132-112, 128-78, and then they played these 2 games this year, so 117-112, 130-110. Of course, the Trailblazers were a garbage fire last year, last season. So I mean, that part makes sense, but I don't know. There's just
I hated playing the Blazers, the bubble Blazers, where Dorian got lit on fire by Dame Lillard. And I think the addition of Reggie Bullock has given it takes, Dorian still guarded Dame some tonight, but he doesn't have to do 38 minutes on Dame. And I think that makes a difference over the course of things where you can throw different defenders at him in the map. And if you can limit him, Dame had 9 of 10 free throws in the first quarter or first half, didn't shoot any in the second. The same thing for Luka, interestingly enough. He had 6 of 7, didn't shoot any in the third quarter. But it's a fun little matchup here. They have some, Jeremy Grant played a pretty terrible game after he was pretty important for them last time. In 21 minutes, he was a negative 29, which is impressive. And Christian Wood, for example, just destroyed Yusuf Nurkic, who didn't play at all in the last game.
And he's more traditional big, and they just pick and popped him to death.
He somehow ended only a -3, which is interesting. But it was just one of those nice games that the Mavericks, I wasn't expecting them to have, to be quite honest, because they looked so bad against Cleveland. The body language from everyone was just atrocious. You get this Maxey news, which, to you and I discussed this last night, that we think that the Mavericks knew about the Maxey news. And they were kind of primed to be able to have a built-in excuse to go on a small collapse, and that didn't happen, which is, I'm pretty pleased with that. And we will see kind of what's next.
Yeah, you want Luka has played Portland 14 times. In those 14 games, I don't think this is including tonight, but in those 14 games, he's averaging 30.5 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, shooting 50% from the floor, 41% from 3. It's easily one of his best matchups, especially for a Western Conference team. I think the only other team he scores more against in Western Conference is the LA Clippers, for obvious reasons.
Right.
But you look at Portland and they have a good roster, but it's they have a good roster for every team that's not the Mavericks, because they just they don't have a ton of 3-and-D wings Simons. If they don't have a rim protector,
they have to throw Jeremy Grant, Hart, Justice Winslow at Luka, which sort of grinds out elements, because Grant is a pretty important part of their offense.
Right.
As a release valve. And if they're having to basically throw people at the meat grinder that is Luka Doncic, it limits them. And we've seen that 2 games in a row now.
Right. And Nurkic isn't doing anything at the rim against a guy like Luka. He likes to drop too. I mean, it's just like I said, it's like the Memphis matchup. They just have their number. It's just a really good matchup. It's a good personnel matchup, especially with Wood like being able to pick and pop. I mean, we saw that against Jared Allen Wednesday, even with the bad loss. Like he still kind of pick and pop Jared Allen to death. He was 4 of 7 from 3. So I mean, this can work. He was only 2 of 7 from 3, but he did a pretty good job mixing up his pops and rolls. And it was just a really good offensive performance. Another one of those games where Mavs role players hit their threes, they win. Like Dinwiddie hit 3
It's funny
threes.
that you say that because I feel like, and I'm looking at the box score. The box score must be lying to me. I feel like Dorian Finney-Smith missed 1,000 threes that game. Was it just that second quarter?
It was just that second quarter where he took like 3 in a row.
And they were all terrible. But you're right, man. The most surprising box score here has to be Timmy Hardaway, who took 10 field goals, but only 3 of them were three-point shots. He had a thunderous dunk off an inadvertent pass that he kind of picked off. Speaking of thunderous dunks, we probably should have talked about this more. Yeah. Luka made probably his best dunk in a win of his career, maybe. I can't really think of, he had that really cool dunk his rookie year against the Nuggets that should have been like a game-winning dunk, only the Mavericks couldn't play defense. And there's been a couple of other like in-game ones, but damn, that was incredible. But
yeah, that was a great dunk.
Hardaway had that thing. Wood had some good play. This was just it.
Hardaway took 7 2-pointers and only 3 3-pointers.
Yeah,
man, Portland's gonna have to do some self-reflection about their defensive effort tonight, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've not looked at their schedule, but it makes me wonder if they're just kind of
that's their thing though, is defense. Like that's kind of been their bugaboo, the Lillard era, because they had Lillard and McCollum, and those were 2 bad defensive guards in your starting lineup. Now they have Lillard and Simons, who it's kind of like repeating the same thing over again. It's like they kind of go as far as their defense will take them because their offense is always pretty consistent. But yeah, the Mavericks just really exploited that. I mean, I don't think, man, Tim shooting well from 2, like I'm sorry to look this up in the middle of the podcast, but he's been really bad from 2 this season, which, coming off the broken foot, like that was concerning. Like, it's like, did he lose something from the injury? Okay. He entered tonight shooting 37% on 2-pointers. That's really bad. That's horrific. So for him to, I think he was 5 of 7 on 2-pointers. He's only taking 3.5. So he's shooting a career low from 2, second lowest in his career from 2 in terms of attempts. Obviously, a career low in percentage. So, that was a concern coming off the injury with the foot. Like, did he lose a level of athleticism? He's nearing 30, coming off a bad foot injury. What's he going to look like? And, it hadn't been too good, at least inside the arc. So good for, is this a sign that he's getting a little healthier, getting back into better shape? Who knows? Maybe Portland just played really bad defense, but it was still good to see.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
He's such a funny guy because it's like when he sees the ball go through the rim, it feels like it changes how he plays almost entirely. Where it's like, this is a terrible comparison. That's the first one that comes to mind. The Boston Celtics, when they had like KG and Paul Pierce, they always used to work to get Kendrick Perkins like an easy shot just to get him engaged early. Where it if Timmy gets a shot to go down early, it changes the pace of his game.
And he started 3 of 3.
Yeah, and when he misses shots, they're real. I mean, they need him to make shots. I mean, we're in the, this is more of a statement than it is a bitchy complaint. But the Mavericks are not in a discernibly different position than they were 2 years ago against the Clippers. Right now, with the team that they have, where it's like they just need guys to make shots.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Timmy is he's such a snowball player, isn't he? Both in good and bad ways. Like it starts rolling down the hill, and it's gonna keep rolling down that hill. And hopefully, it's a good hill or a bad hill. You don't know which one until the game starts. It feels like, but yeah, you're right. This does kind of feel a little bit like the 2019-2020 team in spurts, because that was before they really gave the reins to Brunson. So it really did feel like it was like, all right, Luka, just create all the offense for all of these guys, and let's see how far we can go. And again, we don't, this is why we talked about during the Maxi podcast, like, are the Mavericks going to have to consider like looking at reality and looking at where this team is and start making moves for the future, not just for this season. Tim Cato basically wrote a column with that as his thesis
I need to read that.
before this game.
Before the game. I missed that.
Before this game. I think it was after the Cleveland game, but before this game. And like, this is the kind of game where it's like the only way they could reasonably do that is if they just flat out traded a bunch of guys, because like Luka's too good. Like, there's some people I've seen that are like, man, if they don't make a move or something, they're going to be like 8 games under 500. It's like, guys, Luka, like you don't get that far under 500 with Luka unless there's an injury or something catastrophic has happened. Like, I'm not gonna blow smoke up your ass and say that they're all at the end of December they're going to be like 5 games up, or like that they're going to be a 50-win team again, but they're not going to 500 around this area is probably as low as they can go if they're healthy, because Luka, I mean, guys, Luka's good. Like,
he has to come engaged every night.
Yeah, he has to be. This was good response from him. I mean, he's always good at responses. Like, he's really good at following up the bad performances with authority, and like you could tell from the moment this game started, it was a different feeling than that Cleveland game. So he's 23. He has to work on that. Like, that's probably like we keep talking about like what's next for Luka, and I think on the floor, I don't know what's next. Like consistent free throws, consistent 3-point shooter. But the biggest step is just going to be maturity, and he's 23 and he's got time. And that's probably where he takes the next step, is when we can avoid, those games like the Cleveland game where he was just totally not into it for the first 24 minutes. But thankfully he was into it for this entire game, and I don't think he played the fourth quarter.
Well,
so that's great.
There's a couple of things that I'm looking at that I don't think are sustainable. Just looking ahead, they got 28 really good minutes out of Frank Ntilikina. He had hit 5 shots this season. He hit 3 shots tonight. Frank we said this last night, like both of us agreed that we don't really think Frank is an NBA player. I still don't think Frank is an NBA player. I think that they will continue to roll him out there due to lack of options. He's obviously a very different player than Jaden Hardy, but if the rotation is going to get trimmed in some kind of weird ways, I would just rather see the young guy. That's where I'm at. I didn't like it. I didn't like people calling for it when the Mavericks have an 8-9 person rotation. But if Green's going to miss some more time, if Dwight Powell's going to miss some time, which I wouldn't shock me, that looked like a painful thigh contusion. Maxi's going to miss time. You're just talking about stealing minutes right now, and I think people are being kind of preposterous with their Hardy expectations, but that's okay. You're allowed to be excited, but I would still rather see him play. And 28 for Frank in a game where they were up by like 30 points. Like, we got to get Hardy in the game. They have another game tomorrow night. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. We're at the picking nit stage of a blowout, so I'm not too married to this.
And also, Nat Frank is going to go away when Green comes back. I mean, if you look at his Green has missed the last 4 games, and look at Frank's box score, and he's played the last 4 games, and before that he didn't.
Okay.
Play, so
okay.
I'm
not, like I said, I'm not willing to die on the hill. I don't know.
I know. When it got
seems
to
like an
30 midway
opportunity
through the third quarter, you were like, they could probably sneak him in,
Yeah, he's not going to do any harm because it's not like Frank's a plus player. He has been 2 games in a row, but Frank, if they use him as a 3-and-D wing, I like Frank. If they use him where he dribbles, I do not like Frank. It's the simple distinction.
I know. If you want to know where the Trailblazers defense was at tonight, they let Frank dribble from the 3-point line to the rim and get off a clean, uncontested layup.
Love it.
There's some issues, I think. I mean, I don't follow Portland too closely, but from what I've seen from their reporters or writers or podcasters, it's like, is the defense engaged? Okay, they look great. Is it not? Oh, they look like the team.
They have some fun players, dude. That Shaden Sharp guy, good gracious.
Man. He's fun.
That's an athlete.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, before we go, because I can tell we're rounding down, but Portland, last 6 games, last 2 weeks, they played 6 games, 5-1 record, 12.3 net rating, which is the second best net rating in the league over the last 2 weeks. Like, they were basically the hottest team in the NBA for the most part, and the Mavs just skunked them. So
yeah,
really solid. Yeah,
it was brutal.
Yeah, it wasn't fluky. I don't think this was a fluky game in terms of just like the Mavericks played better than the Trailblazers, 100%.
Well, you're right. We should clear it up. The Mavericks play the Cavaliers tomorrow night.
Then we can get mad again if they lose and they're back to 500 and the carousel starts
the Cavs
all over again.
I've been thinking about that game, and like the Cavs are just kind of it's a styles make fights game. I mean, the Cavs won tonight with, we thought Donovan Mitchell was a hot shooter against us. Donovan hit 8 of 15 threes. He is just on a heater. I don't have access to this. I mentioned this on the night we recorded, though. Earlier in the season, he was hitting off the dribble threes at a statistically significant higher clip than Steph Curry. We're talking like 48% from 3 is what I saw. This was only after like 10 or 12 games, so I have no idea what it is now. But he's on one, and you got to send bodies at the guy. And I don't really know if the Mavericks have bodies to send to them. So this tomorrow night might not be a very fun time, but it is what it is.
Right. I mean, if you want, I've got his
pull-up
number for this season. He's shooting 46.4% on pull-up threes.
That's preposterous. That's not a number.
He's taking 5.5 of them per game too.
See, and that's the actual number, because you do that over 30 games. That means he's almost hitting half through 150 attempts.
Yeah,
that's fucking crazy. Again, just to give you a comparison point, Tim Hardaway shooting 37% on 2s. So.
Jeez, that's a good one. That's some good perspective.
I mean, you got to respect it.
Yeah. Man, Rudy Gobert, man. Is he the curse? All right, now we're getting into we're way past talking about the Mavs.
Well, we're going to have fun tomorrow. Well, we'll have fun on the live show. We'll see. We'll come back on here tomorrow night, keep it a little bit short. We're in the muck a little bit earlier than I thought I would be, but injuries will do that. And I don't know, maybe they can figure something out. I really felt last night was kind of there's being negative and then there's being worried. And last night was a worried sensation for me that hasn't left, but you know what? You got to enjoy these wins as you get them.
For sure. 100% agree.
Kirk Henderson, Josh Bowe, we'll be back tomorrow night. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us. Have a great Saturday.